I would have flung that ring off my hand so fast. Now this is infidelity I support. Who said that? Back in a month. Birthday Bob. Choosing to love yourself is sometimes choosing to love another. Let me start off by saying they ruined everything. This was supposed to be a feel-good show. No, I felt everything, every emotion possible, because every single thing you can imagine going wrong went wrong. Everything bad that you even had the tiniest suspicion that the characters were capable of doing was done. Anyways, if you're new, hi, hello. I'm Samaya, and on this channel we binge film, TV shows, and books, and then yap about them. And today we're talking about the final season, season 3 of The Summer I Turned Pretty. Let's just go ahead and hop into the summaries because this season was full of ups and downs, unexpected turns, and plot twists. I mean, seriously, like every single episode was an emotional roller coaster. I had no idea who she was gonna be with by the end of this, honestly, until the very last second. Okay, they milked that out. But if you have already watched the show and don't want to hear my summaries, that's okay, baby girl. Skip to this timestamp to hear my commentary and final thoughts. It's the last season of The Summer I Turned Pretty, but the very first day of Belly's college career at Finch College. The entire family is there to help her move in, including Jeremiah, who greets her with a kiss. Taylor passes by with her mom on their way to move Taylor into her own dorm as well, and surprise, surprise! A hostile moment happens between Taylor and Steven as they are no longer together. Fast forward by 3 years. Yes, 3 years. Belly, who is now a junior, lays in bed lovingly with Jeremiah, who is now a senior. Real quick, guys. The time jumps were crazy. I don't know. I really wish that we were able to see more moments between Jeremiah and Belly, like what happened between these 3 years. Just because personally, I was having a hard time really justifying Belly's actions as well as Jeremiah's too throughout the season, because they kept saying we love each other, we built this brick by brick for the past 3 years. But as the audience watching, we didn't see any of that, so there was just a really big disconnect in my opinion. And I don't know if maybe the writers wanted that because of the other ship. They want us to root for that ship more, but I feel like it would have been more interesting if they showed us more jellyfish moments of them actually being in a relationship so we could like root for them too, or like have that conflicting feeling inside. That's what makes shows like this fun, you know? But I mean, let's face it, everyone loves drama, so I guess that's why they chose to do the time skip. Back to the story. Meanwhile, on the West Coast, Conrad has graduated from Stanford and is doing his best as an inspiring doctor who also sees a doctor, a therapist, to help with his internal issues and panic attacks. Growth. Back on the East Coast, Taylor is having a grand time, if you know what I mean. Unfortunately, the other person having a grand time is Steven. The thing is, both of them are in relationships, committed relationships with other people, but are hooking up with each other still, cheating on their partners. After Belly almost catches them in the act, Steven leaves to go back to his tech internship under Jeremiah's father's company. Taylor goes to join Belly and their friend Annika at the library to study. While at the library, Belly receives amazing news. She was moved off of the waitlist for a study abroad program in France for the first semester of her senior year. Extremely excited, she goes to find Jeremiah at his frat house to share the news, but she finds him in a bad mood as he is no longer able to graduate because when he moved majors, he didn't complete all the credits he needed to take. This news makes Belly hesitate completely on her decision to go to France because she loves Jeremiah so much and would rather stay with him while he finishes his classes next semester. Later, the couple attend a party, and this is where shit hits the fan. Belly is using the bathroom when she overhears some sorority girls outside the door talking about how one of them hooked up with Jeremiah over spring break. Belly freaks and confronts Jeremiah, who confirms it was true, but that it only happened because he thought they were broken up. What a way to start the season. Belly is absolutely heartbroken, laying in bed, thinking about the big argument her and Jer had before spring break that caused their breakup. The argument consisted of Jeremiah being snappy, defensive, and he ultimately being the one to break up with Belly. The argument was just overall stupid, and it didn't even have like a heaviness to it, so it makes sense that Belly didn't think it was an actual breakup, but there were key details that Jeremiah said that we'll dissect later that gives us an insight about why he broke up with her and where his head was at. Belly tries to walk around campus to help herself feel better, but everywhere she turns is Jeremiah and their memories together. She decides to go get her picture taken for her passport since she accepted the French Study Abroad program offer. But all of that changes when she walks out the door and Jeremiah is there begging for forgiveness on his knees. But Belly just can't accept it, saying, "You were supposed to be the one person who would never hurt me, and now you're the person who hurt me the most." Ouch. Later that night at Taylor's sorority, Steven shows up, convincing Taylor to let him take her out to dinner. On the drive there, he tells her that he broke up with the girl he was seeing and wants to start things up with Taylor again. Taylor freaks out, getting irritated and saying it will never work, and lets her out of the car. Okay, that actress ate that line up though. Can we talk about it? Steven pulls over and Taylor storms out, walking away. Steven, without looking, tries to turn his car around to talk to Taylor and is hit by a car. Taylor and Belly are at the hospital while Steven is in surgery. Jeremiah supports Belly by giving her space and staying nearby in the lobby. In the lobby, Belly asks Taylor to call Conrad, who may understand more about the medical jargon concerning Steven. Conrad does more than that. He speaks with his resident supervisor, who makes a phone call to ensure the best doctor is taking care of Steven. This favor comes with a consequence, though, as Conrad is fired from the group of interns after he was distracted and mislabeled a blood sample. The following morning, Belly gets a text from Conrad asking how everything is going, and we're thrown into the flashback of the season, Christmas at the beach house. Belly didn't want to spend Christmas alone at home, and Conrad's flight was delayed because of the weather. And so the two ended up staying at the beach house together. Nothing really special or infidelity worthy happened. All the two did for one night and a day was be around each other. And that was all it took to spark something in both of them. Back in the present, Steven wakes up and Taylor is determined to show him that she wants to give them a try again, but Steven is not having it. I mean, dude almost died, so he saw that as a sign to start fresh without Taylor, and so he rejected her. Which, I have feelings about that. Outside of the hospital, Belly and Jeremiah go on a walk. They talk things out, Jeremiah apologizing again, and Belly saying she can see how he thought they were broken up and that they shouldn't let one mistake ruin the years of love they built. The two spew words of love to each other, obviously shaken up by how Steven almost died like Susanna and how short life can be. And that was all it took for Jeremiah to propose to Belly. Belly and Jeremiah are blissfully head over heels in love as they kiss and cuddle each other in bed. Jeremiah surprises Belly with an engagement ring. It's simple, with a golden band and a small diamond at the center. A quick Google search says it's called a diamond fizz ring, which is from the popular jewelry brand Catbird. Unable to keep her joy to herself, Belly tells Taylor the engagement news at a cafe. She was expecting equal excitement from her bestie, but instead she gets the complete opposite. Shock and disbelief, and immediately questioning whether Belly and Jeremiah should get married in general. Belly, taken aback, argues with Taylor, saying that she and Jeremiah want to be together forever, and that Taylor can't tell anyone yet. Taylor begrudgingly agrees, and the two go their separate ways. Belly is back home now that the semester has ended. Her and Jeremiah talk over the phone, discussing a plan for how they'll tell everyone about their engagement. They decide they'll do it at Susanna's memorial, since all of their family will be there, except for Conrad, who has been struggling. Every conversation is about Belly. He has been struggling with his longing for Belly, and so he doesn't want to return home. It's now the day of the memorial, and Jeremiah stands alone making a speech to honor his mother. After the speech, they're greeted by, surprise, surprise, Conrad. He decided to show up after all. The brothers hug, and Conrad greets Belly with that overly cheerful tone that he does when he's feeling awkward. Like, y'all know the tone I'm talking about, right? Because am I the only one who picked up on that? In the car, on the way to dinner with the family, Jeremiah and Belly decide not to announce their engagement after all. Mainly because Belly's dad isn't there, and they think the day should be about Susanna. But to be honest, I think Conrad's appearance threw them off. At the dinner, Laurel and the boys' father, Adam, are making many speeches about their children, praising their accomplishments and their optimistic futures. When Adam gets to Jeremiah, though, it's not so optimistic and full of praise. Instead, he basically says that Jeremiah is a super senior deadbeat. Belly, sensing Jeremiah's hurt, decides to correct Adam, saying Jeremiah does have a bright future. Her and their marriage. Everyone goes crazy. Laurel's neck veins are making a return. Adam starts going off on Jeremiah and accusing Belly of being pregnant. Steven smirks, watching it all unfold. Conrad, he sits at the end of the table with a facial expression of like him being physically in pain with like a stomach ache or something. It's the most hilarious expression I've ever seen. Laurel cancels the dinner and drags Belly into the car to go home, Jeremiah driving away in the opposite direction. It's Belly's 21st birthday, and she is dressed in a serving uniform. Her and Jeremiah are working hard to save up for their wedding in August, Belly as a server, and Jeremiah as an intern at his dad's company. Belly is greeted by the signature Mickey Mouse pancakes, but this time it's at her house, not at the beach house in Cousins, which was tradition. She tries to sit and eat with her parents, bringing up wedding dress shopping with Laurel, but the conversation quickly turns sour, with Laurel saying Conrad's famous line, I just can't. Later, while at her job, Belly asks Taylor to go dress shopping with her after her shift, since her mom is never going to agree, it seems. Taylor and her cool mom, Lucinda, agree to take her. At the mall, the pair try to get Belly to cheer up as they shop for her wedding dress at a prom store. After a try-on haul, they finally find the perfect dress, a simple form-fitting white slip dress with the back out. It's honestly so beautiful, like gorgeous. Later that evening, Jeremiah comes to Belly's house to give her a gift, golden keys to the beach house. In his other hand are flowers, not for Belly, but for Laurel. He gives the flowers to Laurel while trying to convince her to support Belly and the wedding. Laurel just can't and walks away from the pair. Belly follows, demanding why Laurel can't see her and Jeremiah love each other. The argument ends with Belly leaving, moving into the beach house with Jeremiah. The next morning, the couple are woken up by Conrad, who still hasn't gone back to the East Coast. Him and Jeremiah go for a swim in the ocean, Jeremiah asking if he'd like to be his co-best man with Steven. Conrad, unable to bring himself to support the wedding for reasons, rejects Jeremiah's request and says that him and Belly are being ridiculous. Back at Belly's house, Belly's dad, John, storms in the house, angrily asking Laurel how could she let Belly leave and why can't she simply support her decision. Laurel reveals her reasons, and it's something all of us girls should listen to. She says to John, marrying you wasn't the mistake. It was getting married to anyone that young, having kids that young, being someone's wife, someone's mother before I even knew who I was. I lost myself, and I do not want that for her. Later on, Jeremiah leaves Belly at the beach house while he heads to work. Belly roams around her old room, thinking about the time Laurel had slept with her when she was young. She cries, overwhelmed with the reality that her mother might not be there for her wedding, and Conrad overhears. After hearing how upset she is about the lack of support, Conrad calls Jeremiah to say that he will be a co-best man and support their marriage. Belly, overcome with joy, runs downstairs and pulls Conrad in an embrace. The parasite in me is wanting Belly and Conrad together at this point. I feel like a lot of you are feeling the same, huh? This is the episode of longing. It's the episode where, sadly, I and probably many others, have fallen victim to the Conrad propaganda. The episode opens with Conrad fixing the house in places that don't need that much fixing. It's because it's not the house that needs to be fixed, but his mind, his thoughts that constantly find their way back to Belly, that embrace and the ends of her hair, the way she tucks her hair behind her ear, her smile, and how everything she does feels like a movie. And so he tries to hammer his thoughts away, electrocute the thoughts away, anything to keep her off his mind. But it's hard when she's around the house and every conversation with her feels like the last cookie in the jar. On the other hand, Belly is having a hard time planning wedding details. Taylor has to bail on helping due to a salon issue with her mother, and Jeremiah is stuck at work trying to impress his dad and prove to the office that he's more than a nepo baby. And so Belly is left to figure out everything on her own and asks Conrad for a ride into town. Conrad makes it awkward and basically tells her he can't. So Belly takes her bike but ends up with too many bags in order to ride safely. So when Conrad drives past and sees, he pulls over, telling her he can drive her around to do errands after all. The two are heading back home from Michael's when they pass by a peach stand. This part had my heart beating. I was like, well, okay. They pull over and Belly blissfully bites into her peach snack, juice sliding down her chin. Conrad, an affectionate smile on his face, leans forward to wipe the juice from her chin with his shirt. Belly takes a step back, though, immediately bringing up Jeremiah and how he might want a peach. Conrad takes the hint and goes back to the car to wait for her. But he would have got me. I would have flung that ring off my hand so fast. I'm like, all right. Later that evening, the pair are eating dinner together and drinking wine. They laugh over old childhood memories, but there's something else on Conrad's mind, if you know what I mean. Before anything can happen, though, Jeremiah pops in and brings Belly to the dock, where they watch the fireworks. Jeremiah tells Belly that his dad now approves of their marriage after seeing how hard Jeremiah has been working, and that his dad will pay for the wedding to be held at the country club. Belly wanted the wedding at the beach house, though, and for it to be close friends only, not business partners. But because she loves Jeremiah, she'll let the wedding be at the country club and for other people to attend. The couple dance as Conrad watches from behind a window at the beach house, a twinkle of sadness in his eyes. Belly and Jeremiah are now apartment hunting. Every apartment, though, is either broken down or dirty, or when they finally get to a decent one, Jeremiah's credit score messes up their chance of approval. Later on, Conrad meets up with Laurel at a late-night diner, and he wastes no time telling Laurel that he'd like to talk about Belly's wedding. Laurel is still being stubborn, showing her disapproval for the wedding and Jeremiah's lack of seriousness. But Conrad stops her, telling her that the wedding is going to happen regardless of what everyone thinks, and that Belly really just needs her mom. And if Laurel doesn't do that, she'll regret it for the rest of her life. Fast forward to Belly's bridal shower, hosted by Taylor at her house in Philly. It's beautiful and pink and full of people excited for Belly, including Laurel, who Belly runs to give an embrace when she sees her. The ladies give gifts and play bridal games. Steven and Taylor have their own private moment, with Taylor promising to support Steven in his possible new relationship with his coworker. Before Laurel leaves, she gives Belly her bridal gift, a passport, and 2 airline gift cards for her honeymoon. After spending a night at home with her mom, Belly returns to the beach house the following morning. She sits at the kitchen table, peacefully writing thank you notes to everyone who attended her bridal shower. Her peace is interrupted by a grunting and wincing Conrad limping up the stairs to the bathroom, leaving a blood trail behind him. He had cut himself when he was surfing. Belly rushes upstairs to help him, sitting extremely close to him on the edge of the bathtub. She pours disinfectant on his wound, and without meaning to, he leans on her shoulder for support. Before getting up, Conrad lifts his head to thank Belly, who almost leans in for a kiss. Now this is infidelity I support. Who said that? Who said that? After Conrad leaves the bathroom, Belly sits with the gravity of what she almost did. I swear to God, though, like, the writing team, they must have just watched Bridgerton or something, because the level of intimacy between Belly and Conrad this season is just, like, peak. It's 2 days before the wedding, and everyone is arriving at the beach house for some pre-wedding shenanigans. All of the gang drink and swim in the backyard, Jeremiah and Belly getting some alone time before their bachelorette and bachelor's night. They promise to meet each other at the beach to spend one last night together before everything gets chaotic. But the chaos begins early, during the bachelorette and bachelor's night. Belly finds out that Conrad spoke to her mom and convinced Laurel to be on board. This causes her to spiral and second guess everything, saying that she never really pictured her wedding, just Conrad. She tells Taylor all of this in the club bathroom, and Taylor's able to calm her down and get her to call it a night. Meanwhile, Jeremiah gets way too drunk, and Conrad overhears Jeremiah's friends brag about Jeremiah sleeping with someone else over spring break. Belly, a little more sober, walks on the beach, calling out to Jeremiah sitting on the lifeguard chair. But it's not Jeremiah who sits there, it's Conrad. Conrad tells Belly what he overheard, thinking that Belly didn't know and deserved to before committing to his brother. But Belly reveals she already found out, which upsets Conrad because he can't understand how Belly still wants to marry Jeremiah, especially since she knows that Conrad would never do something like that to her. And that's when it all comes out. Conrad confesses his feelings for Belly and begs her to get back together with him. Like I said, it was just giving Bridgerton, Anthony, and I'm moving to India, and it is not far enough. That was Conrad's type of speech, you know. Belly, angry, says that Conrad will never be what Jer is to her, that Jer's her best friend and doesn't drop her the minute she's not perfect. She walks away, rightfully so, and leaves a heartbroken Conrad on the beach. It's the next morning, and Jeremiah is on the boat with his dad and friends while Conrad chose to stay behind at the house. Inevitably, he and Belly cross paths, Conrad trying to back out from what he said again. It's just like, just stand on it. 10 toes down. You said what you said. Belly angrily tells him to leave and to not bother even coming to the wedding. He doesn't listen. Instead, he shows up to the wedding rehearsal anyway, never taking his eyes off of Belly as she practices walking down the aisle. During the rehearsal dinner, Belly and Jeremiah lovingly dedicate mini speeches to their friends and family. Jeremiah saving his last mini speech for Conrad, still not knowing what happened the night prior. Belly pulls him aside after she finds out that Jeremiah accepted a full-time position at his father's company without consulting her first. Jeremiah says he won't take it then if she doesn't want him to, and like countless times before and probably countless times after their marriage, Belly drops the argument and says that she would just support Jeremiah and wants him to accept the job offer. That's just, I don't know, icky. An icky taste was forming at this point. Later that night, Belly's mind is heavy with guilt about what happened with Conrad the night before, and so she ends up going to Jeremiah's room and telling him what happened. Jeremiah is extremely upset, accusing Belly that she was telling him so that she can call it quits and be with Conrad with a clear conscience. Ugh. Insecurity doesn't look cute on you, Jeremiah. I'm just putting that out there. Belly shuts down his accusations, saying she loves Jeremiah and wants him. The two end up spending the night together, but Belly wakes up alone. It's the wedding day, and no one can find Jeremiah. Belly freaks out, calling Jeremiah endlessly, but no answer. She goes to the location site of the wedding, waiting anxiously while everyone searches for him. Conrad ends up being the one finding him at their mother's grave. Jeremiah punches him, and Conrad takes it because he knows they deserved it. He tries to give Jeremiah his letter from their mother, who wrote it for their wedding days, but the letter was placed in the wrong envelope. The letter wasn't for Jeremiah, but for Conrad. And what it said really upset Jeremiah even more, so he stormed off. Belly is still anxiously pacing around her dressing room when the door opens. She sways happily, thinking it's Jeremiah, but instead, it's Conrad. He says he has one last thing to say to her before he goes. He apologizes for hurting her and that he won't stay for the wedding or see her for a long time. He gives her a farewell kiss on the forehead and leaves. Now dressed in her wedding gown and pacing the room anxiously, Belly answers the door of her dressing room and Jeremiah enters. Jeremiah tries to reassure her that he's all good now and that there will be a wedding, but Belly isn't having it. She wants to talk it out. After all, her soon-to-be husband left her high and dry all morning with no word. I'm sure at this point she's wondering wondering how secure she can feel in a marriage with someone like that. You know, the conversation takes a sharp turn with Jeremiah asking Belly if she loves Conrad. Belly responds, I do. And that's all it takes for Jeremiah to call off the wedding. The episode ends with Jeremiah sulking, drinking a beer with Steven, and Belly packing her bags and hopping on a flight to France. Jeremiah is drinking his sorrows away at a bar, a supportive Taylor and Steven being there for him, and a dumbass named Conrad trying to show up and be there for him too. Read the room, my guy, read the room. Taylor stops him and shoos him away before Jeremiah sees. Meanwhile, in France, Belly arrives at Finch's campus in France and tries to check in for the abroad program, but there was a misunderstanding on the admin's part as the program is completely booked. No exceptions. Completely over it, Belly calls her mom, who tells her to come home using her card. Belly agrees and goes to a cafe to grab some food. She gets up for one moment and boom, her bag with her engagement ring inside is stolen. Thanks to her Apple tag tracker, she finds the thief inside of a rave, but she's unable to get in. After she sees a girl being harassed, she walks over to help, doing the, oh, this is my friend trick to get a man to back off. It's really sad that we have to do that. Like, just no means no, dude. Just go home, please. I choose the bear. The girl helps Belly get in the party where she's able to confront the thief, aka beat his ass, and get her back. Later on, the girl, whose name is Gemma, she's the one who helped Belly get in the rave, invites her to eat a post-party dinner with her artist friends. Over wine, Belly debriefs them about her story and what had led her to France, saying that it'll be over soon when she catches her flight back home later that night. The group of friends strongly disagree, saying that she should stay. On the bus heading to the airport, Belly decides to call Jeremiah. The two try to talk, but the conversation ends up with Jeremiah asking for Belly to at least be in a relationship with him again. But Belly, not planning this at all, not planning to say this at all, or feel this way, she says to Jeremiah, I think I'm staying in France. Jeremiah gets angry and hangs up, knowing it's the end for them. Belly is building a life in France. It's pretty hard considering she's working 2-3 jobs, taking online classes, and living with strangers she's unable to really communicate with because she's not that good at French. She's figuring it out though, and things are a little easier considering the friends she's made from the last episode, one of whom she's sparking a romance with. She's also receiving letters, love letters, from Conrad. Once the semester ends, Belly decides that her time in France isn't done and that she hasn't found what she's looking for yet, and so she doesn't return to America for the holidays. On New Year's Eve, Belly hosts a party and Taylor comes to visit. Her phone buzzes and Belly sneaks away to take a phone call from Jeremiah for the first time since everything's happened. He now works at a restaurant as a chef and is pretty good at it. The two end the phone call saying, I'll let you go, which had a double meaning. Belly returns to the party with Taylor holding a package from Conrad. Taylor confronts Belly in a lovingly way, gently pushing her to leave the Fisher boys in the old year. Okay, girl, just let them go. Leave them alone. Belly takes this to heart, and when the countdown into the new year ends, she rushes to the friend she's been flirting with and shares a kiss. A couple months have passed, and Belly is in bed with her friend. Her roommate bursts in speaking rapid French about a leak, and surprise, surprise, Belly responds with decent French. I feel like this is just a nod to how her life overall is improving and how she's growing as a person. Belly is helping her friend Gemma pack her stuff away from the apartment she's moving out of. Gemma tells Belly that, if you like to stay in France, you're welcome to rent out my apartment. Belly loves the idea and calls her mom to tell her that she's decided to stay in France for another year. Meanwhile, back in America, the Fisher boys accidentally run into each other at their mother's grave for the anniversary. Jeremiah still holds a grudge against his brother, but is significantly less than before. The two hug it out, and Jeremiah even gives Conrad his blessing, or a kind of blessing, if Conrad wanted to pursue things with Belly again. The episode ends with Conrad buying a plane ticket to France and Belly getting a haircut for her birthday. It's the season finale of the season finale. And Conrad is sitting in front of Belly's apartment, who arrives a moment later, showing off her new birthday boab. Belly is very surprised to see him because she did not respond to any of his letters, by the way. He just came unwarranted, honestly. Well, oh, no, at this point she did respond to just one, giving him her new address to the new apartment she rented out. But that's the only time she responded. And it was honestly like bare minimum, like, hey, thank you for the letters. This is my new address. So it maybe like he wouldn't bother the old neighbors. Belly is once again very surprised to see him, but agrees to show him around the city before her plans with her friends later that night. The two go to see all the tourist spots, but Conrad wants to see the city the way Belly sees it, and so she shows him a rooftop that overlooks the city that she used to frequently go to when times were hard. The two share a moment, and Belly decides to invite him to her birthday dinner with her friends. Conrad agrees to come. Meanwhile, in America, Jeremiah is hosting a dinner party of his own to showcase his cooking, with Taylor as his event coordinator. Everything, of course, is going wrong, but the crew finds a way to make it work by moving the showcase to the beach house in Cousins. It goes well, and Jeremiah even ends up starting a romance with his friend that was Steven's once upon a maybe romantic interest, co-worker / business partner. I know, I haven't mentioned any of that. Sorry, it's just like this season was so plot heavy. At the dinner in France, things are getting cute between Conrad and Belly. During casual conversation and fun banter, it's revealed that Belly and her friend were no longer together romantically, which Conrad seems happy to hear. It's a beautiful time with Belly surrounded by her friends, singing to her in French as she blows out her candles for her 22nd birthday. After the dinner, she and Conrad go for a walk by the river. They romantically slow dance and share a passionate kiss that ends with a time at Belly's apartment. That was a very scandalous scene. After the deed is done, Belly's doubts creep in. She's built a life here in France, away from the Fisher boys, and yet here she was, sleeping with one again. She's gotten a haircut and everything, and yet it feels like she hadn't changed. This makes her freak out on Conrad, asking him pretty valid questions like whether they love each other because they want to or because they were told to, if their love for each other feels so big only because of Susanna's death. Conrad strongly disagrees that those are not the reasons, that he has tried so hard not to love Belly, but that it has never stopped and never will. Belly says Conrad's famous line, "I can't, I'm sorry." And Conrad finally learns a new line in response to that and says, "I'm not," and then he leaves. Belly sits with herself alone in the apartment thinking about how she thought she changed from the girl she once was. But was that girl so bad? She thinks how when she was that girl, she followed her heart no matter what. Because despite any mistakes she'd make and will make, she is worthy of love. And so Belly runs after Conrad, finding him on the train and confesses her love. The two share a kiss, sealing the deal. The season ends with the couple finally returning to the beach house at Cousins. Obviously both changed and a little older, but their love for each other still remaining the same. So for the season final overall rating, I just can't do math because no matter what type of math I did, I kept getting that my average rating was like 2 stars to 2.2 stars, and I'm like, that is not at all reflection, but okay. So I'm gonna give this season overall 3.5 stars. Yeah, that was a lot. Okay, let's start off by talking about Steven and Taylor. I know I didn't really talk about their whole storyline in my summaries, but we could just sum it up now. It was a mess. It really was a messy love story. And I was doing some research. I know they're kind of like a fan favorite, and apparently people thought that they were the cutest couple. Oh, so we like messy infidelity couples. No, this is infidelity I support. Oh, I didn't know that's what we were all into. Not gonna lie though, while watching it, I do remember finishing the last episode being happy that they did end up together. But now that I've let it simmered and now that I'm really thinking about it, I think they're the worst couple in the show. The thing is, I was rooting for the relationship because I wanted it to work for Taylor. When she was talking about Steven and her feelings for him and where they came from, I feel like that was very relatable. However, like how he treated her and the whole back and forth situation, it just at the end, she deserves better. She does. Because I'm going to put it in perspective for you. He literally used her in season 1 to make another person he was with jealous. After that, because that person was gone, he had no other option. He decided to start things up with Taylor again. Taylor, obviously hurt and had a boyfriend at the time, was, saying like, back up, back off. He did not respect her boundaries. In my opinion, because he didn't respect her boundaries, he didn't respect her. He was just being selfish and thinking about what he wanted, which was her, because he had no one else in line. So in the final season, once again, that pattern was there. Arguably for both of them, but Taylor, in my opinion, is the lesser of the two evils, okay? She loved him and she wanted things to work out with him. So you have season 3 where they're both with somebody else, but still messing with each other. And because it's just not working out with the other person, they're not... The thing is, I can see people's perspective that they both try to be with other people and they just weren't. Like Taylor's guy wasn't Steven, and Steven's girl that he was trying to get with wasn't Taylor. I could see where people are coming from, where they're like, oh yeah, that's so romantic. They just want each other. They just want each other. And even when they try to be with other people, it doesn't work out. I still think it's messed up that they cheated on their person. And there were also moments where this kind of irritates me personally, where it's supposed to be about Belly and her thing. Taylor kind of used it as a segue to like talk with Steven, earn brownie points with Steven, spend more time with him. And it's like, you kind of got to be there for your bestie, I don't know. I guess it all dwindles down to, I just wish that Taylor was chosen and loved loudly. I just wish she was not the second, third, fourth choice every time. I wish that Steven chose her from the very get-go. I think that's why I just feel like I can't support the relationship, because I feel like it feels like Taylor likes him more than he likes her. And I don't like that for her. Like, she's too much of a baddie to be begging for a man's attention. And that's essentially what she kind of started doing with Steven. And don't even get me started with how their story ended, where he didn't even tell her that he was able to get a good business opportunity across the country. And she ended up following him across the country, uproot her life, which she already did during their relationship in the last episode. She went from Philly to Boston to be with Steven. Now she's gonna go from Boston to San Francisco to be with this man. That's crazy to me, because I bet you if the roles were reversed, he wouldn't do that. Okay, moving on. Let's talk about Jeremiah and Belly. Ooh, there's a lot to talk about with them. The breakup, the cheating. The breakup argument was just so silly. It was just so silly. Like I said during my summaries, it didn't have a gravity or heaviness to it. I'm on Belly's side. If that happened and over something as silly as that, I wouldn't think it's final. And either way, I would be able to stay loyal for even just like a little bit with the hopes that we'll get back together. But no, Jeremiah just, cracked someone else literally a week in between their time away from each other. That's crazy to me. A week. That's why I said I really do wish we maybe had another season of just watching moments between Belly and Jeremiah and then building the relationship that they claim to have in this final season, because even like within the first episode, them being together was shattered by this whole breakup cheating scandal. But like they clarify later on in the season, the main reason why Jeremiah broke up with Belly during that time was because he found out that they had spent Christmas together and he was waiting for Belly to tell him about it, but she never did. So he assumed that something happened in Christmas and that they were starting things up again. And so he kind of self-sabotaged and beat the gun and broke up with Belly first. If I'm being honest, sure, Conrad and Belly's love for each other is very prominent. But let's be so for real. If Jeremiah wasn't so insecure about his brother, I think that they would have gotten married, Jeremiah and Belly. If he hadn't asked her if she still loved Conrad, I think that Belly is so loyal to whoever she's with, even like if that attraction was becoming bigger towards Conrad, I still think that she would have been a loyal wife to Jeremiah and did what she had to do to stay with him. But he ruined it by just, one, taking her words and twisting them every second he could and always assuming the worst in her when it came to his brother. It's also like, can you blame him though? That is a weird dynamic, a very weird dynamic for you to be marrying your brother's ex. That's putting it in that word phrase, yeah, that's crazy. This reaction I'm having makes sense why Jeremiah would react so strongly whenever Conrad would come up, because it is a weird dynamic. But the thing is, if you guys have built a relationship and it's as strong as you think it is, her holding a little bit of love for someone she used to date shouldn't bother you. I generally think that maybe if Jeremiah had worked out his awkwardness around that, him and Belly would have worked out, but it didn't. So let's also talk about how Belly was losing herself in Jeremiah. She really was. She was agreeing to things left and right for him, things that she would not agree to before. Yeah, she was just losing herself in love. And you know what's crazy? It was Taylor who called her out on that, right? Yet what happened at the end of the final episode? Taylor is losing herself in love and agreeing to move across the country for Steven. That's why I like the show, though. There's a lot of contradictions and a lot of hypocrisy and a lot of flawed characters. Because of that, I think that's why there's such a strong fandom. Everyone can relate to that. Giving advice to your friends, but then doing the same thing that their friend was doing that you advise them not to do. Sorry to the Taylor stans, I'm just pointing that out. Okay, moving on. Belly and Conrad were written to be endgame from the start. And it showed a lot in this season to where it was kind of painfully obvious that they were setting it up to be this great love story. They had the longing episode where Conrad was the narrator and talking about Belly in such a romantic way. We didn't get a narration from Jeremiah this season. As someone who did support Jeremiah and Belly being together, honestly, that felt so disappointing to feel that the writers are really pushing a Conrad and Belly love story. I felt like they didn't really show off the romance between Belly, not as strongly as they did with Belly and Conrad, and maybe that was the point, to show that Belly and Conrad's connection was just one of a kind, and that what she had with Jared just was not on the same level at all. I guess I could see why they did that, but at the same time, I think it's more interesting if they gave us more of a tug in the heart, like, oh, I don't know, I support Team Conrad, I support Team Jeremiah. I think that happened regardless, but in season 3 in particular, I feel like there was no confliction. It was clear who she was going to end up with at the end, so you're just like, oh, okay, I'm just going to accept it then. Hey guys, this is voiceover Samaya. I just wanted to come in here and clarify what I meant, because it was not clear. I meant that in season 3 in particular, it just felt like they were just actively writing a romantic story for Belly and Conrad. While this was supposed to be our season, we were supposed to see more romantic moments between Belly and Jeremiah. But honestly, it just felt like their love story was just a footnote to Belly ultimately ending up with Conrad. In a way, I feel like that was like kind of poor writing. I do want to give kudos to the writers for bringing out this comparison between Conrad and Jeremiah, how Conrad is the dream and Jeremiah is the reality. And I was thinking about it. I was like, you know what? If I were Belly, if I had the option to be with the dream, why wouldn't I want it? Ultimately, I think the show did not dwindle down to were you Team Conrad, were you Team Jeremiah. I think it dwindled down to just being Team Belly, whoever she picked, whoever she wanted. Moving on to Laurel's disapproval. I have a lot of thoughts about that. I think what she said was so profound, and I think a lot of women are using their platforms to have this conversation with younger women, especially because if you really think about it, my generation, I'm Gen Z. And millennials too, I guess. We're the first generations to not really marry so young and it be normal. Like my mom was married by like in her teens, I think. Or was that my grandma? I think both. So can you imagine barely knowing yourself, barely experiencing life, and you're already committed to another and committed to your other family that you're gonna have to give birth to, and never being able to put yourself first, your needs first, being selfish without feeling guilty. That's essentially what Laurel was trying to save Belly from. Because yes, it is a dream to love and to be tied to the one you love forever through marriage. That is the fantasy, that is the goal, right? But in reality, all the stuff that comes with that, it can be a burden, whether we like to admit it or not. And it's even more of a burden on someone so young whose hippocampus hadn't even developed yet. I'd say decisions like that is something to make when you're like older and wiser and more experienced. But also the other side of me is like sometimes choosing to love yourself is also choosing to love another, and you get to decide how to love. Whether that is marriage, whether that is moving across the country to be with that person, whether that is moving in general or sharing a pet. These are decisions you have to make for yourself and to accept all of the consequences that come with that. Good and bad. Consequences don't automatically mean bad, okay? I did find myself kind of mourning shows that show you can have both romance and your own life. I don't know. I think all the reasons for not getting married so young or committing yourself to someone so young is very important, and I think that's a bigger conversation to have. But I do just want to put this out there, and I feel like a lot of people feel this same way too. I guess I'm mourning the fantasy that was sold to me that marriage is the biggest commitment you can have with someone and that it's forever and that everything else will fall into place. But there are just other aspects that are coming to light that we do have to think about. And it honestly adds more gravity to the decision. And I think it should. I think there should be a lot of gravity to deciding to marry someone. And I think that this illusion of marriage, like the fantasy part of marriage and the cracks of reality, was beautifully explored in The Summer I Turned Pretty. But I just want to make it clear, like, that is the journey of Belly. Like I said earlier, sometimes you know what's best for you. Choosing to love yourself is sometimes choosing to love another. By another, I don't just mean a partner. Choosing to love others, friendships, family. There are all different types of love. And you get to decide how to love. These shows that are pushing an only independent narrative, I think sometimes you can have both. Okay, let's talk about this. Why are we so obsessed with this show? I did some digging and I came across this Elle magazine review, and it said, "The Summer I Turned Pretty blends nostalgia, emotional intensity, and romantic fantasy in a way that taps into our earliest understandings of love and longing." I definitely agree. I also think though that we're obsessed with the aesthetic. We love a show that has a good aesthetic. Like with season 1, the aesthetic was like first loves, that Juliet from Romeo and Juliet style, pomegranate margaritas, the traditions of childhood that easily break when something happens. Season 2, I don't think it was necessarily aesthetic or full of vibes that people think of fondly, but it taps into wanting things to go back to how they were during a time of crisis, but it can't. The only thing it can do is move forward and create something new. And then you have season 3, which is tragic love, longing, white clothes, true adulthood immersion, and I think this show did such a good job in visually showcasing the arc of Belly's story through these aesthetic vibes. Okay, guys, thank you so much for watching. This is such a fun series for me. I did hear a rumor that there's a movie that might come out in 2027. So this is what Jenny Han said. She said that the movie will be about Belly's next milestone. So there's theories online that it could be about motherhood, which I definitely see it going that route. People are like, well, in the books, at the end of the book, she and Conrad did get married. So maybe this is about their marriage. It could be that too. It could be both. Who knows? But yeah, that's a wrap. Until next time.